सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा गणनायकाय गणदैवताय गणाध्यक्षाय धीमहि गुणशरीराय गुणमण्डिताय गुणेशानाय धीमहि गुणातीताय गुणाधीशाय गुणप्रविष्टाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि गानचतुराय गानप्राणाय गानान्तरात्मने गानोत्सुकाय गानमत्ताय गानोत्सुकमनसे गुरुपूजिताय गुरुदैवताय गुरुकुलस्थायिने गुरुविक्रमाय गुह्यप्रवराय गुरवे गुणगुरवे गुरुदैत्यगलक्षेत्रे गुरुधर्मसदाराध्याय गुरुपुत्रपरित्रात्रे गुरुपाखण्डखण्डकाय गीतसाराय गीततत्त्वाय गीतगोत्राय धीमहि गूढगुल्फाय गन्धमत्ताय गोजयप्रदाय धीमहि गुणातीताय गुणाधीशाय गुणप्रविष्टाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि ग्रन्थगीताय ग्रन्थगेयाय ग्रन्थान्तरात्मने गीतलीनाय गीताश्रयाय गीतवाद्यपटवे ध्येयचरिताय गायगवराय गन्धर्वप्रियकृते गायकाधीनविग्रहाय गङ्गाजलप्रणयवते गौरीस्तनन्दनाय गौरीहृदयनन्दनाय गौरभानुसुताय गौरीगणेश्वराय गौरीप्रणयाय गौरीप्रवणाय गौरभावाय धीमहि गोसहस्राय गोवर्धनाय गोपगोपाय धीमहि गुणातीताय गुणाधीशाय गुणप्रविष्टाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्डाय वक्रतुण्डाय गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि एकदन्ताय वक्रतुण्ड गौरीतनयाय धीमहि गजेशानाय भालचन्द्राय श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि श्रीगणेशाय धीमहि। रे सा ग म ध नि सा नि ग म ग सा नि सा ध नि ध म ग नि ग सा। श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि तेरी लीला सबसे न्यारी न्यारी हरि हरि तेरी लीला सबसे न्यारी न्यारी हरि हरि भजमन नारायण नारायण हरि हरि भजमन नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। लक्ष्मी नारायण नारायण हरे हरे लक्ष्मी नारायण नारायण हरे हरे बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। लक्ष्मी नारायण नारायण हरे हरे लक्ष्मी नारायण नारायण हरे हरे लक्ष्मी नारायण नारायण हरे हरे बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण हरि ओम नमो नारायण। सत्यनारायण नारायण हरे हरे, सत्यनारायण नारायण हरे हरे, जपो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जपो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। हरि ओम नमो नारायण, हरि ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण, हरि ओम नमो नारायण, हरि ओम नमो नारायण। सूर्य नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, सूर्य नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। विष्णु नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, विष्णु नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, जपो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जपो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। बद्रीनारायण नारायण हरे हरे, बद्रीनारायण नारायण हरे हरे, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि। चंद्र नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, चंद्र नारायण नारायण हरे हरे, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, बोलो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, भजो नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, श्रीमन्नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय 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 नारायण, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि, जय जय नारायण नारायण हरि हरि। ऐगिरि नंदिनि नंदित मेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नंदनुते, गिरिवरविंध्य शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णनुते, ऐगिरि नंदिनि नंदित मेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नंदनुते, गिरिवरविंध्य शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णनुते, भगवति हेशिति कंठकुटुंबिनि भूरि कुटुंबिनि भूरि कृते, जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते, सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिणि दुर्मुखमर्षिणि हर्षरते, त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिणि घोषरते, धनुजनिशोषिणि दितिसुतरोषिणि दुर्मदशोषिणि सिन्धुसुते, जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते, अये जगदम्ब मदम्ब कदम्ब वनप्रियवासिनि हासरते, शिखरि शिरोमणि तुंग हिमालय शृंगनिजालय मध्यगते, मधु मधुरे मधु कैटभगंजने कैटभभंजने रासरते, जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते, शतकंड विखंडित रुंड वितुंडित शुंड गजाधिपते, रिपुगज गंड विदारण चंड पराक्रम शुंड मृगाधिपते, निज भुज दंड निपापति खंड विपातित मुंड भट्टाधिपते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते ऐरण दुर्मद शत्रुवधोदित दुर्धर निर्जर शक्तिभृते चतुर विचार धुरीण महाशिव धूतकृत प्रमथाधिपते दुरित दुरीह दुराशय दुर्मति दानवदूत कृतान्तमते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते अये शरणागत वैरिवधूधर वीरवराभयदायक रे त्रिभुवनमस्तकशूलविरोधि शिरोधिकृतामलशूलकरे दुमि दुमि तामर दुन्दुभिनादमहो मुखरे कृततिग्मकरे जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते अये निज हुंकृते मात्र निराकृत धूम्र विमोचन धूम्रशते समर विशोषित शोणित बीज समुद्भव शोणित बीजलते शिव शिव शुंभ निशुंभ महाहव तर्पित भूत पिशाचरते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते अये सुमनः 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 सुमनोहर कान्तियुते श्रितरजनी रजनी 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 करवक्त्रवृते सुनयन विभ्रमर भ्रमर 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 भ्रमराधिपते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि शैलसुते अये गिरिनन्दिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दनुते गिरिवरविन्द्यशिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम, सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम, सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव हाथों से करो घर का काम, मुख से बोलो सीताराम। हाथों से करो घर का काम, मुख से बोलो सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव कौसल्या का वाला राम, दशरथ जी का प्यारा राम। कौसल्या का वाला राम, दशरथ जी का प्यारा राम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित बंसी वाला है घनश्याम, बंसी वाला है घनश्याम। धनुषधारी सीताराम, बंसी वाला है घनश्याम। धनुषधारी सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे मन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। पतित पावन सीताराम। पतित
Om Shanti. Good morning to you all. First of all, I would like to thank Umesh and his team for rendering us wonderful bhajanas. Thank you, Umesh. I request all of you to keep your mobile phones in silent mode if you don't mind. To celebrate Shobita's unique spirit and love for life, we are gathered here today. On this occasion, 5 of us will pay our tributes to our dear Shobita. We'll first start with Shobha, followed by Shireen, Rita, Vivek, Vikram, Mulki, and then I will speak in the end. Thank you very much.
It's a little difficult to talk about SHOBITA because she meant just so much in so many different ways to all of us. My earliest memories of her was seeing her in her grandmother's house, Akama Kochma as we used to call her. Akama Kochma was really one of the most beautiful women perhaps that I have ever come across. She was beautiful in, physically, and in a spiritual way. She was just amazing. And SHOBITA was the apple of her eye. And in a sense, I feel SHOBITA took all that on because she used to spend a fair amount of time with her. A little later down the line, when our parents, my parents and Naomi, drove us up the hill and put us into St. Hilda's. So I can see some old seniors of mine sitting here also. And we joined together. I was 7 years old, and I was so miserable and homesick those first few days. And SHOBITA just took me under her wing. And I think in a sense, as an elder cousin, I just looked up to her, and that relationship kind of stayed for the next 58 years. Nothing really changed very much there. She would always kind of keep in touch, find out what I was doing. And I always would look at her and these myriads of things that she would be managing, and so modestly, because you never heard anything from her about what she was doing. I remember actually one of the times when she had come to Bangalore, this is about 25, 30 years ago, and she was taking someone from Sri Lanka to Hampi. And she took my daughters, who were then 10, 12, Samiha and me. Till date, it is so vivid in my mind. The Queen's Bath, and I can still see in my mind's eye the water and the rose petals strewn about and these beautiful women just, getting into their bath. That's how she made history come alive for us every single time. Whether it was at Hampi, whether it was at a museum, whether we went to visit weavers at a particular exhibition. Every time she would just, she would point some small detail out. She didn't take the whole gamut and explain it to us. She would take a small detail, point that out, and then after that, your mind, it was like your mind changed and you started seeing things around you differently. But that was her speciality. And I remember once when I was reading this book on Buddhism, and she had come home, and I said, I don't understand this part of it. So SHOBITA kind of leafs through it, and in a few sentences, with such simplicity and such clarity, she explains this whole thing. And I find that was, what she had when she was so many, I think when we've all read those accolades by her students, her way of bringing stories alive, her way of explaining things, her depth of knowledge was so huge that she could actually make it so simple for those of us who didn't know. She loved her family, and every time she came to Bangalore, she would bring Samiha to meet her cousins, and I think in the process has created a bond for a lifetime. So Samiha knows that, all her family is here, SHOBITA's friends, supported by them. And that's actually, again, a legacy of SHOBITA, the way she did it. On her last visit to Bangalore, when I met her, her advice to me was, you must dance through life. So those of my family that are here, I'm going to take that advice very seriously. And you might see me literally dancing randomly somewhere. Just remember, SHOBITA said it. And I'm just following her advice, as usual. On my last trip to Delhi this time, I found her greatest lessons to me, which were grace under pressure and courage. The way she handled these last few months, I was astounded. It still takes my breath away at how she could be so, she would always be meticulous. She was so, whether it was, she was well-groomed, meticulous, getting on with her Zoom calls about the book, and so excited about everything around her. In fact, I remember, like this last book that she's written, The New History of India, when I was sitting with her on her bed the last day before I left Delhi, which is about 3 weeks ago, she wanted me to sing some hymns. And so when I sang a few, she says, oh, those are very mournful, we don't want those. So I said, okay, which ones would you like? So she says, you know that one that says, I vow to thee my country? And that was it, this love for her country came through in her work and in the way she saw our country. And then I also, the thoughtfulness and consideration that she had at that time of extreme illness, it just blows my mind away, because she would insist every day that, okay, so what are you going to do today? What are you going to see? And I had to come up with something, Samiha knows, and I'd be making things up on the spot. As a result, I connected with a friend who I haven't seen since college, 45 years ago. I went to this Bangla Sahib Gurudwara, and then Nizamuddin, where Gillian took me around, all organized. SHOBITA would insist, you must do these things. And then come back in the evening and chat with her about it, because that's what she wanted. What did you do? Tell me about it. I'd like to just read a few excerpts. I was just thinking yesterday, what do I say, What's a tribute to her? And then I pulled out her book, and I thought, my gosh, it would be her own words, actually. And the strangest thing is, I take this book, and I just opened it out randomly, and it was actually a section on death. And I thought, this is appropriate, and I started reading through it. So I'm just going to end with a few excerpts from that book and what she said about it. Death is not the end of life. When those we love, who have loved us, die, then we must grieve, for they have taught us to love. Weep with gratitude for what that person taught you, showed you, and helped you become. And then there's this bit that she's written to Samiha, actually, where she says, I hope, my daughter, that there will be thousands of people for whom you will grieve like that. Thousands with whom you share a oneness, for whom you feel such warmth, who have taught you to love, not to hate, to accept, not to discriminate. Mourn for all those who have taught us and taught you to say us. Thank you.
I have to start by warning you. I've already started. I don't have Shobita's composure or her self-control, and I've already started choking and embarrassing myself before I know what I want to say. So please forgive me for that. But I have to try and follow Shobita's advice. She gave me advice to Shobha a few weeks ago from her bed, in fact, the week before she died. She claimed I was mumbling. Yes, I do. And she was irritated. So she said, "Speak louder, Shireen. You'll enunciate your words better if you speak louder." So I'm going to try that. They say childhood friends are friends forever. And I think this is true for Shobita, Dina, my sister who is here, and myself, and all of us, I think, from St. Hilda's, Shobha, who are here and who have known her. We've known each other for 60 years now and have gone through life's up and downs. Our contact with each other as we went about our own lives has ebbed and flowed over this period, but the bonds of friendship have never diminished. We first met Shobita when she joined St. Hilda's in the 1960s in Ooty. She was in Dina's class. I was a year ahead, but we shared the same dorm. The school was tiny. There were about 10 girls per class, and friendships were strong. At that time, both her father, Premanti, and little Supriya, where's little Supriya, and her mother, Naomi, lived in Bombay, literally up the road from us. And so we spent many happy times together at each other's homes. Usual chitter-chatter, midnight feasts, and other things that little girls did at that time. In adulthood, our bonds deepened. Dina spent a year in Delhi, and they lived close to each other and had a lot of contact. And then when Shobita moved to Saket, I moved to Delhi also, and for about a little less than 14 years, and we used to meet often. We all have our special thoughts and memories of Shobita. And Shobita had so many wonderful characteristics, Shobha's already talked about them, that we all cherish. We all have our individual personal interactions and memories of her. A few of the things I'll remember her for most. The leader with the amazing organization skills. Shobita was the world's best organizer. Everything she did had to work like clockwork. 5 minutes delay put her in a very bad mood. I think Samiha, who has not inherited that skill, knows only too well. She and Dina went on a trip to Barcelona together a few years ago. Shobita had planned everything, what they call a minute-to-minute program. Dee says it was a pleasure because she not only knows everything, as Shobha said, would bring the world alive, but each day was programmed to the last detail. The same on a trip that we took, a weekend, that we took to Jodhpur for the music festival. She had organized us for each day, including time off, and we got a chance to meet Viji, Vikram, Suju. She would regale us with all her vast knowledge, and we dutifully obeyed her instructions. And the same, the way she planned and executed Samiha's wedding, from the outfits to the food and the flowers and the venue and the guests and where everyone would work, it all worked like magic. Of course it did. She was organizing. I'm sure Rudrangshu and Toby will agree that their book would have taken twice as long if not for Shobita. Yes? Cracking the whip and forcing them to adhere to deadlines. And I'm sure Mohit has seen firsthand her attention to every detail while planning and furnishing her new home. Something that gave her so much pleasure, but must have made Mohit consider switching to another career. Very, very recently, when she knew her time was limited, but was still being optimistic, she wanted the three of us, Dina, she and me, we had a little chat, to go to Kochi for a few days. And she wanted it timed in between her chemos and when she would be feeling better and so on. And she gave us a lot of possible dates, going all the way from June to August, and including this week where we are here. So that was her organization skills, her wicked sense of humor. Shobita had a wicked sense of humor, little bit cutting, always saying the truth in laughter, and you would burst into laughter. I was browsing through our chat, and even now I was laughing at some of the comments she had made. In one discussion, we were talking about beautiful designer kurtas that she had. And I said, sorry, I can't afford those. And she made fun of me. She said, oh yes, the simple social scientist. Her warmth and hospitality. I think all of us have experienced that. I certainly have. When I moved to Delhi for work, it was Shobita and baby Samiha who opened their home to me. Stay as long as you want, she said. And I took that literally. I was there for almost 3 months till I found my own flat. Those days were special. Lolling around on her bed, watching and trying not to laugh at Samiha seriously watching her favorite serial night after night, talking about work, politics, family, nothing, and eating Jugal's wonderful food. For the next decade and more, we met frequently, exploring new restaurants, shopping, spending more relaxed evenings at her home. Last year, she moved to Panchsheel. She loved that new home. And she would say, your room is ready. I took that literally too, and I stayed with her several times over these last months that she has been there. However much of an effort, as Shobha said, she would insist on doing things with me. And when it became impossible, she would put her car and driver at my disposal. The week before she died, Dina and I spent time with her. And then too, she was concerned about whether we were comfortable, had enough to eat, needed anything. From her bed, she was directing everything. Now comes the hard part. Her strength and fortitude with her battle. Cancer was no match for Shobita. Even over the last 3 years, when it returned with a vengeance, she did not let it take over her life. She worked, she traveled, and continued a hectic schedule as long as she could. She was determined to not let it overwhelm her. Through losing her hair, losing weight, being in constant pain, bouts of bloating, they never fazed her. And she remained vehemently in control of her life and anyone else's who was around till the very end. Her courage was something to see and something for us to emulate. Though these last months had been so difficult, she made trips to Bangalore to see her grandniece. Where is she? She went to Egypt with her friend Helen, and much to our delight, twice she came to Bombay, where she stayed with us and visited her old friends there, and attended and made remarks at the launch of their new book, looking as radiant as ever. And this was only as recently as March. And as Shobha said, finally her devotion to her family and friends. SHOBITA had a wide circle of friends, and they extended from Delhi to Bombay to Bangalore and Chennai to London, the US. She was really the global Desi. Rudrangshu and Toby, who she met often and were her close friends for years. Her special group in Delhi, Aisha is here, Sheni, Freni, Damini, Nomi. They would meet every Sunday, have long Sunday lunches, many escapades that SHOBITA would relate to us. I think she drew great strength from them till the end. Her family. Only in the week before she died, she had Samiha pull out an album and explain to Dina and myself, along with little anecdotes, who each person in each photograph was. Her father, her mother, her prema auntie, they all meant so much to her. Ajit, her advisor, Supriya, her dental advisor, and forever her little sister. They all meant so much to her. And the boys, and their travels, Supriya, Ajit, and the boys. She would often tell us about stories about the three boys and their travels together with Samiha. But most of all, there was Samiha. What will make Samiha happy? What will secure Samiha? Those were always uppermost in her mind. And as time went on, Mohit joined the family and was welcomed with open arms, treasured as a son, and relied upon, perhaps even more than she relied on Samiha to do things for her. And then Tane arrived. Yes, you arrived. And SHOBITA's life was full. Her life revolved around him. Devoted grandmother, singing to him, playing with him, reading to him, running after him, she did it all. Samiha was everything to her. Even in her last days, when she knew that the end was coming. She talked about things. She talked about Samiha. As Rudrangshu wrote, Samiha was SHOBITA's only vanity. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Chance and circumstances occasionally offer us a gift. And so it was in the summer of 1969, I met SHOBITA for the first time as teenagers in our first year at the Stella Maris College at Chennai. Out of a strength of over 1,000 students, a small group of us connected. We didn't all share the same classes or subjects, but we were drawn together, as these mysterious life miracles are, by some bond of kinship, and this became a strong, lasting friendship over a long lifetime, despite never being in the same city and sometimes never in the same country. Bablu, Ramni, Rachel, Rita Shetty, and I. And we thank Samiha for reaching out to us and inviting us to be here today for this celebration of life. Tell us about Mama's Chennai college days, Samiha asked. How do I capture it? Those 4 undergrad years were just golden, giving each of us a window of whom we could become. Looking back, I remember our high spirits, our intense friendship, and endless creativity for poetry and debating, for art and music, and yes, theater. Many of you may not know this, but SHOBITA was our lead actress, and one of her favorite memories was her dramatic central role as Beatrice in Paul Zindel's play, The Effect of Gamma Rays on the Man on the Moon Marigolds, a role famously played by Joanne Woodward in the Hollywood version. Our tiny cast of just 4 of us stayed with the nuns in the convent over the long summer holidays, rehearsing after early dinner in the moonlight open-air stage. It was pure magic, remembered over and over in our later years together. With SHOBITA also came the gift of her family. And I remember with love her dad, Uncle PUNJA, and his many kindnesses to me. Prema aunties, absolutely elegant and warm hospitality. And of course, the chance to get to know SHOBITA's little sister, Supriya. As we graduated and moved forward with our lives, each of us had a different personal connect with SHOBITA. Mine was that of the path not traveled. You traded your soul, Rita, she scolded me many a time, lamenting my choice of the corporate world. But I made up by getting a front row in her life, and what a life it was. I got to read and discuss every one of her books, including the recent stupendous History of India. Thank you. I got to read and discuss, we got guided tours of her favorite projects, her curated collection at the Hyderabad Palace Museum, and her personally reimagined Fort Museum at Goa. We exchanged book recommendation. She sent pictures of whatever was her latest obsession. Recently, it seemed to have been installation art. And of course, through all of this was woven the personal. We celebrated the arrival of Samiha, full circle later, Mohit and little Tane. We shared her enjoyment and sometimes frustration of crafting her beautiful new home. There were, of course, her many setbacks and heartbreaks, too sad to mention here, and her recent illness that tested her in a way that nothing else had tested her in the same way before. And through all of this, she remained her true self, unwavering in that extraordinary inner strength, balanced with her unique grace and elegance. Perhaps the poet said it best. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness. And so, my dear, dear SHOBITA, there are no goodbyes from us. You are loved. These bonds will endure always. You will be remembered. Godspeed, my friend. Thank you.
My name is Vikram, and I'm Shobita's cousin and good friend. Shobita has been a very strong influence in my life, a very close friend, an advisor, a confidant, an inspiration. Shobha, Shireen, and Rita have spoken so eloquently about Shobita, and I heartily concur with them on all the rich tributes that they've paid to her. She was all that and much more, we all know that. Today, I will recollect some experiences and talk about someone who touched all of us in one way, one special way or the other. Shobita's enthusiasm for life was contagious, and she made all those around her feel very upbeat. She continuously and restlessly looked for perfection in everything around her. Everything had to be correct from her perspective, visually, aesthetically, audibly, perfect. I remember her short visits to her home in Madras from Delhi in the early 1980s. I was then staying with her family, her dad, Ramesh uncle, Premanti, and Supriya for some time. Within the first 20 minutes of her arrival, she would be moving and repositioning all the pictures and the paintings on the wall. Then she would have all hands available, rearrange the furniture around the house till she got it right from her perspective. She'd go to the kitchen and change the menu and order all the help around. The music would change from Neil Diamond, which Supriya used to play from the morning to evening, and it would be Joan Armatrading or the Doobie Brothers. Then she would settle down with a cup of tea and narrate her stories. Her visits were like a delightful storm passing through, and everyone in the household looked forward to them. Through all the years that we've known Shobita, she always was an amazing storyteller. She had the ability to mesmerize any audience with her unending repertoire of the most amusing tales. Her unique brand of humor, her comic timing, they were a hard act to follow. Just a roll of her eyes and her facial expressions would suffice to have her listeners in splits. She had an anecdote for every occasion. Her stories were fresh and from everyday experiences. All she had to do was go to the grocery or anywhere she went and come back, and then she would have a story to narrate, complete with a beginning and an end. And she took this ability to communicate to her workplace, her lectures, and wherever she had to speak publicly. She never failed to get her message across in a way that would have a lasting impact on her audience. Shobita was a voracious reader. Her apartment in Delhi was filled with books of all kinds. Every inch of the walls would be covered with shelves and books crammed into it. Now that gave me a complex, really. I once asked her if she had any speed reading techniques that she could share with me. No technique, she said, but she definitely had something to share. She said, and I quote, "At age 45, with 2 doctoral degrees under my belt and several books published, I was diagnosed with 3rd-degree dyslexia." She would take in an entire line at a time when she was reading and mentally reconstruct it before moving to the next line. That was her reading technique, she told me. Now that gave me some hope. Shobita was a person of unique tastes and choices. Her choice of clothes, very traditional, understated but very classy, always stood out. Her choice of jewelry, simple but exquisite. Her love for local food and everything local was well known. She always got her holigays and halwas shipped to her from Mangalore, her string hoppers and her puttus stuffed into her bags in Kerala to take it back to Delhi. Though SHOBITA was very influential, very well connected and well regarded, she always played it down and stayed humble at all times. She used her influence very judiciously but never hesitated to use it to help those who needed it. And being a very family-oriented person, she always kept in touch with all her relatives and the family. SHOBITA has a large extended family, and she made it a point to visit all the elders wherever she could, whenever she could, to seek their blessings. She enjoyed bringing up her daughter Samiha and was very proud of her son-in-law Mohit, always doted on her sister Supriya, and very fond of Ajit, her brother-in-law. Tanay, her grandson, was the apple of her eye. Her last 15 photo forwards on WhatsApp to me were all Tanay. There is one more experience that I'd like to proudly share with you. Some 27 years ago, SHOBITA visited a 900-year-old Shiva temple in the heart of Alsor here in Bangalore. She just loved it. So much that ever since that day, she made time on every single trip to Bangalore to go and visit that temple. I was privileged to be the one to escort her there each time. Each time the excitement showed in her face, like it was the first time she was visiting. The historian in her and all her storytelling skills surfaced there as she passed by those stone sculptures. Seeing her excitement and listening to her tales for me was a priceless experience, memories of which I will always cherish. I really wished that her next book would be about the Shiva temple. But that was not to be. Alas, her health took a turn for the worse. The last few months were spent in bravely fighting her illness. We spoke to each other a lot, more often, and communicated on WhatsApp. I had to respect her stern orders not to discuss her health in the last few weeks, nor visit her immediately. And because of my inability to return from travel on time, my wish to spend some time with her was not fulfilled. And then she passed. Like her life, she passed away in a quiet, dignified way, with her closest family by her side. Her large world of family, friends, colleagues, students, and all those who knew her and knew of her will miss her dearly. Thankfully, even in her absence, SHOBITA will continue to always live in our minds. Her memory will always bring smiles to our faces. And she will continue to be a strong influence and an inspiration to all of us who knew her and knew of her. Thank you.
Thank you, Shobha, Shireen, Rita, and Vikram, for sharing your memories, deep friendships, and unforgettable journey with SHOBITA. It is so wonderful to listen to the journey SHOBITA had as an author, as a historian, her unquenching thirst for knowledge, a restoration expert, a conversationist, an articulate speaker. I don't know where to stop. Thank you all. My journey with her started in a tentative way as a brother-in-law, gradually transforming into a trusted and dear brother. I remember my early days as a young entrepreneur visiting Delhi on work and having a pleasure of visiting her, tasting her rare scotch and sumptuous dinner at her Kaushalya Park home. She was always keen to know what I was doing and how my fledgling company was progressing. The central part of the discussion of the evening always used to be the family, not just the near one, but the larger family circle. I still remember vividly how she liked my father and his candid views on life. She has visited many times my hometown Vitla and watched keenly our famous devil dance in my family home. She knew the nuances of these ancient rituals. Her visit to my village temple and her knowledge of that particular temple and its architecture was truly amazing. Supriya was always her little sister, as quite a few of you have said, even though she became a grandmother. Their relationship, characterized by moments of love-hate, followed by deep affection, was always entertaining to witness from the sidelines. She loved to come to Bangalore and stay at Tara. Sometimes I wondered whether it was us or our Veerappan's famous fish curry and ganji. Invariably, the holy guest will arrive after the dinner. She would savor one with a handful of ghee and then look up if anyone had an objection for the second one with a twinkle in her eyes. Her respect for elders were deep, but she always put her foot down when she knew she was right. The story of how she and Prema Aunty tore down and redid Supriya's wedding pandal's floral decorations after PUNJAs retired for the day is still the talk of the town. Prema Aunty was her godmother and a close confidant, while Ramesh uncle was her devoted role model father. Shobita had deeply ingrained values. Mulki Mafia, as we fondly call our family group, was her famous hunting ground with her daily tidbits, jokes, and profound thoughts. She will never miss to wish a birthday, an anniversary, or a milestone of a family member. Her connect with the next gen was extraordinary. She was our dawn in every Mulki Mafia get-togethers. We will miss you that, Shobita. In this hour of deep grief and sorrow, it's important for us to remember her literary pursuits, family bonds, and love for life. Samya was her inseparable darling Sam. Mohit, her proud son. Tanay, a doting grandson. And Supriya will forever be her little sister. Let us pray that Lord Almighty grant strength to Sam, Supriya, Tanay, Mohit, family, and friends who are gathered here today and watching us live to bear this loss. May Shobita rest in eternal peace. Om Shanti. May I now request all of you to observe a minute of silence as we pray, as we offer our prayers for the departed Shobita. Please, thank you. Thank you. You may now please offer floral tributes and kindly join us for lunch. Thank you.
वाले का वो हेलमेट है। डिस्मेंटल को बोल दिया आने के लिए उसको, ये साउंड वाला साउंड लेके चला जाएगा। हाँ क्या भी नहीं है, कैमरा वाला कैमरा लेके जाएगा।
अक्का का है?
हाँ
अक्का का है?
कभी भी वो झंझट ही
आमिर कहाँ है? क्या टाइम से निकल रहा है? हाँ दूसरा कौन है? क्या हुआ? Contact number. वेट कर रहा है चक्को। हाँ इवेंट ही खत्म हो गया ना। हाँ कौन सा कि इवेंट को चले गए लोग।
कौन सा इवेंट को चले गए लोग?
शादी शादी को ये वो तमिलनाडु साइड है, उनके रिलेशन में शादी की चाहिए. लेकिन आई तो और एक टर्म मैन पावर डाला था इसके जोड़ में, मैन पावर डाला
कभी
अभी कभी भी नहीं आई था.
हाँ ये छोटा इवेंट वो क्या मैन हो गया ना इवेंट ही है.
कौन सा नहीं अब एक टाइम बोल रहा हूँ उसमें, कौन सा इवेंट के नाम होता है. फूलों का होगा रोड की बड़ा रिजल्ट फूलों का होगा ही नहीं.